Hi, this is my first webcast, and well, I'm new in these things, but I've seen a lot of webcasts, so I imagine this makes me nervous. Well, this first webcast is dedicated to the latest Stargate Universe episode called Time. It was chapter 8 of first season of Stargate Universe. I might say that it was overall it was a good episode in because it was a well planned episode, but the show is not quite good, and I only wanted to separate two critics. First, dedicate a critic to the episode, and second to Stargate Universe. But I don't think that I will be able to do that. Stargate Universe is a good show. Pardon, excuse me. Stargate is a good show, it's a good franchise. Universe is the latest attempt to make it non-geekly, if you can. It's like Enterprise, I imagine, the role that Enterprise played within the Star Trek franchise, or the latest Star Wars films relevant to the first trilogy. Universe is a show that departs of a good premise, the Ninth Chevron, but since the development of the show hasn't been quite what I expected to be it, I'm a regular visitor of Gate World. I hear a lot of their podcasts, and something that bothers me about those guys is that they always tend to analyze Stargate Universe in such a groupy manner. It's like the show is dying, but they don't care about it. They just like um, the franchise, and if this byproduct is good or bad, they don't care about it because it's Stargate. I mean, it comes to mind Stargate Infinity. What Infinity was to the Stargate franchise a few years ago, this is what the universe is doing. Not yet, it hasn't marked a moment, a moment in the Stargate universe, in the Stargate franchise. I'm trying to compare it to as many sci-fi shows or intro first chapters starts that I can, and I don't find a good comparison because every sci-fi show that I've watched had a really promising first chapter. I mean, let's think Stargate itself. The first chapter of SG1, Children of the Gods. It was good. It it hadn't had not the best technical features, no animations that marked a difference, but the premise of the show was good to continue the movie, and the movie itself was good. Stargate SE1 started with a low budget, but it catched the a TV audience quite fast. By this, I'm not thinking that it catches millions of people, because most critics will say Universe SE1 had a low rating start. Yes, it had a low rating start because it was starting a franchise, but it make a difference, and that was what the show was about. Uh, then, when Atlantis began, they had already established a mythology. They had already established a bureau base audience, so they could do better things, but for I'm thinking in the I'm thinking of the first episode of Atlantis, uh, Rising. Yes, it was Rising. Rising had a very good kick when it started. The first episode was all about the ancients as SG1, but SGU, sorry, but it had a force at this unknown theme because the the makers of the show were opening this whole new universe of possibilities about the ancients, to whom we have since season 6 of SE1 started to like because they were the makers of the ambulances, the makers of the stargates, the most advanced civilization in the known universe. So the premise was good, and it had quite a good cast. Um, but if you compare this to SEU, you will find that though SEU has very good actors, Rush character is very good. You can tell whether the show is you can tell whether the show is about Stargate, about the Stargate franchise and the mythology they have already established in the previous shows, or if the show revolves about suspense. I don't mean this in an unpolite manner. I don't hate suspense. I love Battlestar Galactica, and for example, if you compare SU, the the three-parter, that one is almost like a movie because the cinematics and the CGI action is very well done. If you compare that with the other start, the Battlestar Galactica start, the 3 hour movie, no, 2 hour movie, you can find you can't say SU is good. Um, Galactica catches you from the start. Galactica had a new approach to sci-fi, a more sensual approach, a more suspense-driven approach, but it was good because it was new. Uh, you didn't know what was going to happen later, and during all 5 seasons of Galactica, there were five, I think, or four. During the seasons of Galactica, the producers and the actors especially drove us like if they were taking us by the nose, to use a metaphor, in the way they liked, they wanted. In SU, I think, well, I've read many places over the internet that SU tries to to gain of the momentum that Galactica has made possible in sci-fi as being the new series. I think there are very many parallels about that, but the problem is that Galactica was Galactica. They had their own mythology and they innovated from a show that was 20 years old, so they had a fresh new audience. But with SU, it only smells like they are copying it. In many pages, they refer to Galactica as to SU, sorry, as Stargate, as as Battlestar Universe. I concur with that opinion. I think that Universe is the Battlestar Galactification of Stargate franchise. It, that doesn't appeal to me much. Well, this is all for this first part of the podcast. I'll be making a second part.